It is Thursday, December 21st, and this is The National.
Tonight, the mystery surrounding their deaths is no clearer as thousands pay their final respects to Barry and Honey Sherman.
An online photograph recharges an old Canadian debate, exposing again this country's split over hunting.
But we begin with an international spy story and a suspect who once stood right inside Justin Trudeau's office. This is early morning video of Ukrainian security forces arresting Stanislav Yezhov. They had suspected for some time he was spying for Russia. Yezhov worked as a translator and aide to Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman. That gave him entree into the offices of world leaders, including Canada's Prime Minister. So how serious is this? What are the ramifications if a possible Russian agent really did pierce Canadian security? Murray Brewster dug up some disquieting details.
You cannot get any closer to the center of power in Canada than standing right beside the Prime Minister's desk. And that is where Stanislav Yezhov was just a few weeks ago. And this is where he was last night, being taken away by agents of Ukraine's state security service. He's being accused of treason, spying for Vladimir Putin's Russia. A statement by the security service accused Yezhov of collecting data on the activities of governmental institutions by means of special equipment and passing along information to his Russian contacts through electronic communication channels. Perhaps most importantly, it suggests he had been under suspicion for a while. And that leads us back to Canada.
So I will just interpret your questions sentence by sentence.
Yezhov was there when the Ukrainian Prime Minister sat down with CBC News during his Ottawa visit, where we asked him what was said with Justin Trudeau.
Ukraine needs defensive weapons, high-tech defensive weapons.
That is key. The Ottawa trip happened 3 weeks before the Liberal cabinet approved Canadian companies selling weapons to Ukraine, a significant move on the world stage. So, was the Ukrainian delegation given a heads up? And if so, did that get passed on to Moscow?
So for him to be located by the Prime Minister's desk is rather strange, I would say, at a minimum.
This intelligence expert was startled to see Yezhov unattended directly beside Justin Trudeau's desk and away from the leaders.
I would say that if it's not a security lapse, they should be revisiting the protocols that they function under when it comes to visiting delegations. We don't want the Russians to be privy to what we may have promised or not promised the Ukrainians. So I would hope that when this footage is being shown, they would say, oh, that shouldn't have happened.
The Prime Minister's office offered little comment other than confirming Yezhov was part of the recent Ukrainian delegation. Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland was in Kiev today. Her staff said she was unavailable to comment. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
So the big question tonight, what vital information did Stanislav Yezhov overhear as he tagged along with the Ukrainian Prime Minister? There was alarm in Britain today that the accused Russian spy had penetrated 10 Downing Street. He was there when Groysman met with Prime Minister Theresa May to discuss military aid for Ukraine and how to counter Russian cyber attacks. We know Yezhov was there when Groysman met U.S. Vice President Joe Biden at the White House. He may have also been present when Groysman met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or German Chancellor Angela Merkel or the head of the European Union. Now, if this supposed spy has been under investigation for a while, it is possible they were onto him when he was in Ottawa and he was still allowed into some inner circles. There will be a lot more questions ahead. And lingering questions, Ian, are precisely what you're dealing with tonight with a story that has really captivated Toronto.
Yeah, Adrian, thousands of people gathered just outside Toronto today to say farewell to Barry and Honey Sherman. But alongside the finality of a funeral for the billionaire couple is the continuing mystery of how they died. The couple's son reiterating his belief that his parents were murdered.
Remember this. Our parents never left anyone behind. They were taken from us.
Forensic investigators were back at the couple's home today. The Shermans were found there Friday, strangled. CBC News has confirmed they were found beside the pool in the basement and that there are no security cameras in or outside the home. Homicide detectives are leading the investigation, but there is still no indication from police that the deaths are homicides. The family has enlisted the help of prominent attorney Brian Greenspan. The case still very muddy, but what was made abundantly clear at the memorial today is that before their deaths, Barry and Honey Sherman touched thousands of lives. Ron Charles was there.
It took a huge hall in a convention center to hold everyone who came to say goodbye to Barry and Honey Sherman, the Prime Minister among them. Jonathan Sherman stood on stage with his three sisters.
Nothing prepares you to sit down and write your parents' eulogy. To lose a parent is a difficult thing. But to have both parents taken from you before their time, my parents were exceptional people who loved life.
He spoke of how much the public conjecture about his parents' deaths has compounded his family's grief.
Before we could begin to grieve as a family and recover in a proper Jewish manner, we've had to navigate through a terrifying maze of non-information and unfounded speculation.
The continuing mystery surrounding the couple's deaths has also weighed heavily on friends trying to say goodbye. Publisher Paul Godfrey knew the Shermans socially.
I know these people that are working on the case are the best in the business, and hopefully we'll get an answer to what really happened in the days ahead.
The crowds of family, friends, employees, and strangers who showed up to the funeral today are testament to how many people care deeply about those answers.
The most generous people you could ever meet.
Stephen Schulman of the United Jewish Appeal says the couple's generosity and kindness left so many people who barely knew them feeling a strong connection to them.
I think for the Jewish community beyond that, so many people felt that they knew them personally, whether they were their best friends or they'd met them once.
As the caskets left this very public funeral, family members retreated into privacy to grieve and to wait for answers. Ron Charles, CBC News, Mississauga, Ontario.
The Shermans leave behind a legacy of generosity.
Barry told me that although he didn't like to be high profile, he felt it was his duty to set an example for other wealthy people to be as generous as he and Honey were.
In Toronto, the couple donated about $10 million to Mount Sinai Hospital and $3 million to the University Health Network, among others. And they supported education as well, donating to the University of Toronto and a project to build a health sciences research centre at York University, which now bears their name. The United Jewish Appeal's Sherman Community Campus north of Toronto also reflecting their support. And it wasn't just Toronto and Canada that benefited. The couple helped around the world as well through their pharmaceutical company, donating about $50 million worth of pharmaceutical drugs, primarily to organizations working in the developing world. The opposition is calling on the Prime Minister to pay the full cost of his Bahamian vacation, including its security. Yesterday, the Ethics Commissioner found that Justin Trudeau breached the Conflict of Interest Act for accepting a vacation with the Aga Khan on his private island.
So perhaps the Prime Minister, to demonstrate the depth of his apology, his sincerity in making that apology, should commit to repaying to Canadian taxpayers or repaying the Canadian tax dollars.
The Prime Minister's office has Trudeau reimbursed the government about $5,000. That's equal to the cost of flying his family commercial to Nassau. That's become standard procedure because of security concerns. The Canadian government doesn't allow the Prime Minister to fly on commercial airlines. Police say a Calgary music teacher posed as a teenage boy online and then lured, abused, or otherwise victimized 22 underage girls.
He would ask them to chat through various social media platforms and would offer cash or items in exchange for sexual favors.
Christian Surreal was already facing charges in relation to 3 victims. 19 others have come forward in the course of the investigation. Surreal now facing a total of 49 charges.
When a nation is singled out for attack in this organization, that nation is disrespected. What's more, that nation is asked to pay for the privilege of being disrespected.
Well, that is U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley unloading at the UN today, where the overwhelming majority of members voted to condemn President Donald Trump's recent decision to move the American embassy to Jerusalem. Not that today's result was a big surprise. Trump's sudden announcement earlier this month was greeted immediately with condemnation from around the world. And as Paul Hunter reports, few nations apart from Israel took Trump's side.
For the record, Donald Trump's stated aim in the Middle East is still to somehow broker a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians. The same Palestinians who tonight burned images of Trump for dismissing today's vote at the United Nations.
A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process.
The vote was aimed at signaling disapproval of Trump's plan to relocate the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, a city claimed by both sides in the conflict and seen by most as central to the peace process.
Entitled Status of Jerusalem.
The vote wasn't even close. 128 countries to 9 against the U.S. 35 countries, including Canada, abstained.
We are disappointed that this resolution is one-sided and does not advance prospects for peace to which we aspire.
Among the handful of countries siding with the U.S., Togo, the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and Israel. The UN vote is non-binding but deeply symbolic, and it came despite a remarkable threat this week from the U.S. Said Trump yesterday he'd track who votes how and could withhold U.S. aid from countries that don't side with him on this.
Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care.
Just before the vote today, the U.S. ambassador to the UN echoed Trump's position.
This vote will make a difference on how Americans look at the UN and on how we look at countries who disrespect us in the UN. And this vote will be remembered.
And yet the U.S. was sharply denied. Haley later declared the vote null and void regardless, adding U.S. plans to move its embassy remain in place. Israel's prime minister was equally defiant.
Israel completely rejects this preposterous resolution. Jerusalem is our capital. Always was, always will be.
Still, it's the day the rest of the world said, in effect, we don't see it that way and we won't be bullied. The question now, what's Donald Trump going to do about it? Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Now, as Paul mentioned, the countries that did side with the U.S. today are mostly small Pacific Island nations that really barely register in the American consciousness, with a couple of notable exceptions. Guatemala and Honduras have each received significant American aid over the years, perhaps not surprisingly, given their proximity to the U.S. Guatemala alone has received at least $500 million since that country's civil war ended in 1996. And the U.S. has plans to send more. Another $80+ million has been earmarked for Guatemala, with more than $67 million for Honduras.
Well, this is the sort of image that reveals a division in Canada between those who enjoy and celebrate hunting and those who dismiss it as pointless, even barbaric. Steve Eklund has been hunting since his childhood in remote northern Ontario. It is a big part of his life, but posing for that picture has made him the target. Rafi Boudjikanian lays out both sides.
While TV and until this week, Steve Eklund was a minor celebrity as co-host of an outdoor show. Now, to some, he's a major villain for hunting and killing a cougar in Alberta. On social media, Eklund boasted about using every part of his kill and what a satisfying meal it made. A Canadian press story on the reaction helped stoke a wave of outrage. "This is not a sport. How is hiding like a coward behind a rock or behind a tree with a projectile weapon far away a sport?" read one comment. "Such a beautiful animal," lamented another.
"Look at those white whiskers. Look at that."
His critics include Laureen Harper, wife of the former Prime Minister. "What a creep, must be compensating for something, a small penis probably," she tweeted. She assured her followers the comments were really hers, that she was just really angry that some guy flies all the way to Alberta to kill a magnificent cougar so he can make a stir-fry. Eklund was also knocked for using dogs to run down his cougar, but hunting experts will tell you that's how it's done. Alberta has regulated the hunting of cougars since 1969 and established a quota system in the 90s. Amid the current controversy, the province pointed out today that Eklund had acted within the law.
That was a fairly typical cougar hunt in Alberta.
Eklund's employer is standing behind him as well.
Unfortunately, he's getting some huge backlash, but that won't change the fact that we love our hunting heritage here in Canada. The fact is, Alberta allows dozens of cougars to be legally hunted each year. Today, Eklund issued a statement thanking the hunting community for its support. Other than that, he was laying low. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Edmonton.
Some new details tonight about what likely caused last week's deadly Hydro One helicopter crash near Tweed, Ontario. The Transportation Safety Board says a tool bag that was not properly secured came loose during the flight and hit the helicopter's tail rotor. Investigators also found that 2 of the 3 passenger seat belts were not fastened. All 4 people on board, the pilot and 3 power line technicians, were killed. The community of Fernie, British Columbia is working to overcome a recent tragedy of its own, a deadly ammonia leak. And tonight, there was a chance for the community to try to begin healing. With snow in the night sky, children cheering, and the sound of steel on ice. This is Fernie, where some are on their skates again after the leak at the hockey arena. That was 2 months ago. It poisoned the air and killed 3 people. Aaron Collins has the story of those who made this moment possible.
Here in Fernie, the snow is falling and excitement is in the air and on the ice as their brand new outdoor rink is finally open. But there's also a sense of loss here. But just building this new rink, just getting it done, getting back on the ice has brought this community together. In the end, it came right down to the wire. Volunteers frantically hanging lights and flooding the ice at Fernie's brand new outdoor rink. Hastily built after the city's arena was closed following that deadly ammonia leak in October, Fernie's mayor says having something to build and a place to gather is helping her community to heal.
Every negative is a positive, and this is our positive, thanks to everybody.
Just 3 weeks ago, there was only a field where this rink now sits. When people started talking about building an outdoor rink here, Fernie contractor Chuck Shoesmith and an army of local volunteers stepped up.
It's all about a place for the kids to skate before Christmas. That was the driver, and here we are.
Shoesmith says the new rink would have cost about $250,000 to build, but he says donations and countless volunteer hours mean the actual cost will be closer to $25,000. One of the biggest donors, the NHL's Calgary Flames, who pitched in almost $100,000.
And we think that that's, not just the gift of ice, but a time period where people could really utilize it.
As you can see, this rink is already a very popular place to gather here in Fernie, and that's a good thing because it'll be the only place to play hockey and figure skate here for a little while longer. That's because Fernie's indoor arena remains closed while the province and the RCMP try to figure out just what caused that deadly ammonia leak in October. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Fernie.
So a little treat for Royals fans. Prince Harry and fiancée Meghan Markle have released their official engagement photos. Behind the lens was fashion photographer Alexei Lubomirsky. Quite distinguished in his own right, he started his career as an assistant to famed photographer Mario Testini, whose work included many shoots with Princess Diana. Still ahead on The National, At Issue is here as Tom Mulcair gets ready to leave his seat in the House of Commons. Where does he leave the NDP?
Plus, are you heading out for the holidays? Well, then you wouldn't be alone. We'll check in with airports across the country on this, one of the busiest travel days of the season. Next.
And here's a little something to think about as you get dressed up for your holiday parties. Are those heels worth serious health problems?
I just feel frumpy if I'm not wearing a heel. People are just like, are you kidding me? You wear that to work? And it's like, yes, I'm comfortable. They don't get it.
Good evening, I'm Knowlton Nash. On News Magazine tonight, a tense week in Israel as Prime Minister Begin struggles to hold together a government shaken by the Palestinian issue. We'll have that story later. But there also was disappointing news from Canada today for Begin. Prime Minister Clark announced Canada would not move our embassy to Jerusalem. That move had been an election promise, and it may have won some close races in heavily Jewish ridings. The promise remained firm after the election, firm until the storm of Arab protests and threats. Former Conservative leader Bob Stanfield was sent to the Middle East, and his recommendation, don't move the embassy. Today, Clark changed his mind, agreed with Stanfield, and said the embassy would not be moved.
His mandate, sir, Mr. Stanfield was asked for a recommendation on the implementation of our policy on Jerusalem in a way that would be compatible with the efforts that are being made to achieve a comprehensive peace settlement in the Middle East. As a result of extensive consultation, Mr. Stanfield has concluded that a change in the location of the Canadian embassy in Israel could be seen as prejudging negotiations among parties in the Middle East and might in fact work against progress towards a just and lasting peace settlement. Sir, the purpose of this government is to encourage that peace. Consequently, the government accepts the recommendation that no action be taken on the location of the Canadian embassy until the status of Jerusalem is clarified within a comprehensive agreement between Israel and its Arab neighbors. We look forward, sir, to receiving Mr. Stanfield's final report so that the government might consider other matters involving our relations with the Middle East.
That's News Magazine for tonight. I'm Knowlton Nash, and for Ann Medina in Tel Aviv and myself, good night.
On the National tonight, we are looking live at Pearson Airport. This is the busiest day of the season right now, just after 9:20. Looks pretty quiet, pretty reasonable there at the moment. But a couple of hours ago, the Christmas rush in full swing. If you have traveled at this time of year, you know scenes like this very well. Long lines, airports bustling, crowds of people heading home for the holidays. By midnight tonight, 130,000 passengers are expected to have gone through Pearson today. And yes, with busy travel days come frustration when the waits are long, flights are delayed. But this is also the time of year when families reunite. And as one of our reporters in Winnipeg discovered, the airport may be the best place to sit back and watch that play out.
Oh, I'm so happy. I love my girls so much, and Shelby is, yeah, my home. All hearts come home for Christmas, and we have a wedding on Saturday.
It's wonderful. It's been 10 years, so you know, it's different. A lot of preparations and organizing and stuff, but it's great.
It's beautiful. I left everything behind, and I came. I had to see them.
Let's take another live look at Pearson. One of the things we're watching for, a special weather statement in place right now for that area around the airport. Just 5 to 10 centimeters of snow expected by tomorrow, but the airport has warned delays and cancellations, quite possible. So if you're traveling tonight or tomorrow, best to double check your flight before you leave home.
And it is that time of year when lots of people are getting dressed up for holiday parties, and for many women, not necessarily me, that means high heels, a footwear choice not recommended by most doctors. But as our Christine Birak shows us, even though many women are aware of the health impacts, some just can't kick them loose.
And here we are.
Oh!
Voila.
Laura Dana Munez doesn't deny it. She's obsessed with shoes.
I just feel frumpy if I'm not wearing a heel. It's weird.
They lift her up, literally 5 inches or roughly 13 centimeters off the ground.
The higher the better? The higher the better. As long as they have a platform.
And she doesn't kick off her heels at her salon either, opting to wear them all day long.
And that's comfortable.
But statistics show Canadian women experience 4 times as many foot problems as men. Despite a few exceptions, Ontario recently passed a bill blocking employers from forcing workers to wear high heels for health and safety reasons. And it's already the law in BC.
Elevating the heel is going to shift that center of mass forward.
Podorthist Kevin Fraser says an inch is fine, but higher heels equal higher risk.
By elevating the heel, it certainly creates more instability, which could potentially lead to injury.
Slips and falls are one thing, but Fraser says high heels can also damage your bone structure.
Where the base of our heel is the strongest part of our foot and supports the majority of the weight, we're taking that out of the equation and shifting the center of mass forward. And that's going to put an abnormal amount of stress on this area. We also have some very sensitive nerves on the bottom of the foot.
The shift in weight can cause bunions, toe cramps, place extra stress on ankles and knees, increasing the risk of joint degeneration and osteoarthritis, and lead to hip and lower back pain. Fraser's advice? Don't wear them. If you must, opt for shoes with ample toe space and take them off every couple of hours.
Trying to rotate your shoes, trying to switch your shoes, certainly not standing for extended periods of time. That's going to help reduce the discomfort of wearing a heel, but ideally it's not a well-suited shoe for the majority of workplaces.
Back in Munez's closet,
Do you ever worry that I'm doing something now that's going to affect me down the road?
I hear it all the time. Every client will walk in and say, are you okay? How do you do that? But yet I've never had an issue. Never, no back issues, no feet issues. I'll let you know.
But even she has her limits.
It's an hour shoe, about an hour, and then you take it off.
On for a good time, but just not a long time.
This is a great shoe too.
Christine Birak, CBC News, Brampton, Ontario.
Going into a national park to cut down a Christmas tree is normally prohibited. Why this park is encouraging the practice and love the look, that spruce smell, but hate the mess? Coming up, science's quest to save us from those pesky needles.
For all the excitement and excellence we can expect at next month's Olympics in Calgary, there will be a sinister undercurrent. At any moment, winning athletes could have their medals taken away if they fail post-competition drug tests.
Those tests are precise, they're sophisticated, but officials have a hard time keeping up with the pharmaceutical repertoire of substances some athletes use to enhance performance. The Journal's Catherine Olson has been looking into this problem, and she finds that when milliseconds mean the difference between Olympic success and failure, there's great temptation to use artificial means to be higher, faster, stronger.
The World Cup Speed Skating Championships in Calgary last month, one of the last big warm-up events before the Winter Olympics. For the athletes, it's a chance to check out Calgary's new speed skating oval. 6 world records are broken.
You've done this before? Yeah, just once.
It's also a chance for the Olympic drug testing officials to make sure they've got all the bugs worked out of their system, and that none of the world records is the result of drugs.
Okay, now we go. No, now we go to the doping station.
A Korean skater wins a bronze medal, but he also wins a trip to the Olympic doping center. So do 36 other skaters. It may not be the glamorous finish you'd imagined.
Okay, just have a seat over here, please.
But this is the way many races actually end.
Okay, well, the routine in here is basically, when you're ready, you'll be able to produce a sample for us, okay?
During the Olympics, any athlete that places in the top 4 will also have to make a trip to the doping center. Their urine samples will be analyzed to see if they contain any one of several hundred substances that are banned. It's all part of a high-tech and very expensive system to keep the Olympic image clean and the games drug-free. But despite the all-out effort, it's a battle that may already be lost. Drugs have been a controversial part of the Olympic Games since the last time Canada played host in 1976. 14 athletes were caught using steroids and amphetamines. It was an embarrassing scandal, but it was only the beginning. 1983, the Pan Am Games in Caracas, Venezuela. 19 athletes are disqualified for using drugs. They include 2 Canadian weightlifters. Suddenly, there's an exodus of athletes who leave before they're finished competing. They say they're injured, but the impression is they're leaving to avoid the tests. Los Angeles, the 1984 Olympics. 11 athletes fail the drug test. surface, it looked like the drug problem was gradually being licked. But Canadian discus thrower Rob Gray claimed drug use was becoming even more widespread. Athletes were simply becoming better at beating the system.
To my experience, most of the top people in the world, I'm talking about top people, I'm not talking about my position in the world. It's not that hard to reach my position in the world without using steroids. Without drugs, you're not going to be able to succeed.
The black market in illegal drugs was in fact flourishing. And in North America, one of its ringleaders was a former Olympic silver medalist. In 1972, David Jenkins was a member of the British relay team. 2 years ago, he was arrested in California. He since pleaded guilty to charges related to his running a $100 million black market in steroids.
I think it's straightforward.
From maintaining a strong trading relationship to defeating terrorism, to cooperating on a number of threats around the world, including North Korea, which was just mentioned, the United States and Canada really have a very close shared mission and shared objective in addressing all of these. Our countries enjoy the most extensive economic relationship you'll find anywhere in the world, and there are a number of opportunities to grow that relationship, important opportunities, and build on the strengths of both countries in the years ahead.
U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in Ottawa on Tuesday. No question that there are big differences in U.S.-Canadian foreign policy, more obvious maybe now than ever after Trump put his America First mandate announced earlier this week. But what is the state of the Canada-U.S. relationship in spite of all those differences? Andrew, Chantal, and Althea Raj are joining me here in Toronto to talk about all of that. Do you want to start?
What is the state of the relationship?
Yeah, I mean, because there are so many differences. I mean, you only have to look at the move on Jerusalem to think about, a foreign policy difference where the difference couldn't be more glaring here.
The Trump White House and the Justin Trudeau government were never going to be simpatico. They feared that Trump was going to win, but they were in disbelief that he actually won on Election Day. I think that the Liberals have done as best as they possibly could. You know, they've really used tools that we wouldn't have thought about, like leveraging Ivanka's relationship with her father to help further move Canadian foreign policy goals. They have been rather smart strategically. We've talked about this, about building bridges with governors and with local members of Congress and basically fanning across the United States to help sell the image of Canada and make the case for NAFTA. They probably need to do more work with Democrats because Democrats are not necessarily going to be pro-NAFTA, and they may have underestimated that angle. But, I mean, what more to say about this topic? I'm not sure. Yeah. They're starting to see differences towards the latter half of the year. Mr. Trudeau has come out and said things that are critical about the U.S. on North Korea, for example, in their policy. But aside from, like, tiny little changes, I'm not sure that we've really seen a progression.
There's been they've had the two tracks. One was the sort of what I might call Trump whispering, you know, trying to cozy up to him in various ways. I must say that female entrepreneur initiative was a little hard to take because it was basically whitewashing Trump's rather problematic issues with women, but that side...
Pink washing, I think we call it.
Pink washing, maybe that's what I'm looking for. But he would... So that, I think, has been perhaps less successful than this broader effort to fan out and to develop power sources and alliances outside of Washington, outside of Trump's circle. The thing I would also say, though, is Trump is a much diminished figure himself now. He's at 33% in approval rates. He's in a lot of trouble with the Mueller investigation, et cetera. So it may be that the smarter thing to do was to have that broader approach and to develop those alternate power centers.
Well, but I wonder if those facts make it easier for Justin Trudeau's government to sometimes oppose him more vocally or be more critical publicly.
Yes.
Well, you asked about the state of the relationship, and I'd say better than expected by most this time last year, which is a plus. And don't read anything into it relative to the future, because that is what we have learned. Canada is not big on the Trump radar, and when it is, it's usually as something to beat up on to try to divert attention. And that hasn't changed. And although I agree that Trump is diminished and he's got problems of his own, that also makes him more dangerous for Canada in the sense that he needs easy wins. And he has, in his rhetoric, continue to portray Canada falsely, has a big trade problem, and I'm going to deliver you jobs, etc.
Always accompanied by, but that Justin Trudeau's a good fella.
Yes, my best friend.
So the personal relationship doesn't seem to have bought us a lot.
No, not yet.
But Trump is also a gift to Justin Trudeau. To this day, he remains a point of comparison to voters who always say, let's relativize the problems here. We're happy enough that we have Trudeau and not this.
But he's also a gift to Andrew Scheer, because now Scheer can point to, for example, the tax package and say, see, this is something that will embolden his agenda. Maybe there will be policy where he has something to propose. And it's also a way for Andrew Scheer to point to Justin Trudeau's failures and saying, you didn't get this done.
I mean, that's certainly, you know, the government, give him credit, when Trump was elected, was very seized of the importance of this. Everything had changed. Just to pick up on Althea's point, that tax package changes a lot of things for Canada, and we are going to have to respond to it. And I have not seen a signal from the government yet that they get that.
And guess who's going to have to be the lead person on the tax change thing? No, not the revenue minister.
No. Or the prime minister, if they figure that Bill Morneau can't handle it.
But people do not see Justin Trudeau as Paul Martin.
Yes.
If Paul Martin was, as prime minister, going to have to do that, it would have worked. But this is a different proposition, and he is not. I don't want to say he's not credible, but he doesn't come across as a trust me on this financial stuff thing.
He's damaged critically.
Okay, I'm going to change topics to some other news that probably didn't get a lot of play this week, and that is that Tom Mulcair is resigning from politics, although not soon, in the spring, but he has confirmed that that's what's going to happen. It's been quite the journey for him, taking over from Jack Layton, you know, a very powerful, impressive voice in the opposition inside the House of Commons, helping the NDP build in Quebec, and then it all sort of just fell apart. So what does he leave behind? I mean, I realize he's already been replaced and the party's trying to rebuild, but you know, if we're thinking back in history books about Tom Mulcair's time as leader of the NDP, what are we writing in those books?
Well, he's a tragic figure in some ways. He inherited the great breakthrough that they'd made in Quebec. He would claim credit for having been a big part of it, perhaps rashly. But I think he did well to hold on to a fair chunk of that. But measured against the expectations, where people thought the NDP really had a shot at power, and one of the it has to be said is, as poorly run as the NDP campaign was, part of it also was they had this problem called Tom Mulcair. He's an immensely accomplished, immensely impressive person, but he does not wear well with people. He is not warm. He is not good at the art of being politic, of putting your foot right, and he more often than not will put his foot wrong. And they knew that, and they had made these dreadful efforts to get him to smile more, remember?
Yes.
And a lot of, I think, the problems of the NDP campaign stem from how do we
It's weird, though, because wasn't that the same sort of criticism around Stephen Harper?
Of course
that we had to make him warm, and somehow people overcame that when it came to Stephen Harper.
Yes, but he didn't have to run against Justin Trudeau, and when he did, he lost.
Right.
Tom Mulcair was unlucky that Justin Trudeau came up. It may have been the only Liberal leader that he could not offset with competence. I still think that when people look back on the short period, 4 years, when the NDP was official opposition, no one is going to say in the future, if the NDP has problems, and it will, that it's because it was incompetent in official opposition. It didn't show itself ready for prime time.
Right.
And they didn't lose through incompetence.
No.
They lost because people went for something else. I think if you look back at the NDP experience in power or in roles of responsibility elsewhere, I know Bob Ray hates me for saying this, what he left behind was not a legacy that made the NDP more electable. I think Tom Mulcair did not make the NDP unelectable. A lot of what happened to the NDP is circumstantial, or they did it to themselves.
I agree with everything they just said. I think the moment the Canadians will remember when they think of Tom Mulcair is him being basically chief prosecutor in the House of Commons, going after Stephen Harper over the whole Mike Duffy affair and Nigel Wright. But Mr. Mulcair did not make himself a lot of friends on Parliament Hill. He is not a very lovely person to people who are not in his immediate circle. And I think there will be a lot of questions about why he is staying in the House of Commons until June. He barely speaks in the House of Commons. I think he's spoken twice.
I haven't seen him
up there. He doesn't come to votes that often.
Yeah.
You know, on the Senate side, if you miss attendance 21 days in a row, your pay starts getting docked. Those records are not public on the House of Commons, but I would encourage Mr. Mulcair to show up more often. Otherwise, people will start asking him why he is actually not in the chamber and not getting his pay docked. why is he waiting for so long when he will engineer a by-election that will mean that that MP is only there for 6 months until we have another election?
Oh, I think it's a Christmas gift to Jagmeet Singh. The New Democrats are looking at the by-election in Outremont, and as iconic as the victory was when Thomas Mulcair won it, the loss of it, if it happens, is going to be devastating. By pushing off to June, with a bit of luck, it might get lost a bit in the traffic of the Quebec election that is taking place next fall.
Where there's time, there's hope.
Can we also say that it's really odd that the NDP has not done a big tribute to Thomas Mulcair as NDP leader? I understand that they basically beheaded him politically, you know, giving him 48% support.
Maybe he didn't
but
want
it's very interesting that there was no, like, thank you to Thomas Mulcair before a new leader was elected.
The PQ never did that for Lucien Bouchard either, and he didn't want to show up for it.
No, maybe.
So this is the tribute, then. This is the tribute for Tom Mulcair that he so much wanted. All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. If you love politics as much as we do, you can listen to our podcast. We're also a podcast. You want to hear Chantal, Andrew, Althea, and others anytime, subscribe. You'll get extra content and, of course, the main panel in podcast form every week. iTunes, podcast apps, our website, cbcnews.ca/thenational. Those are just some of the images captured by Canadian photojournalist Kevin Freyer, a breath-stealing, painful look at the Rohingya crisis. Freyer's work for Getty Images has landed him the prestigious honor of Time magazine's Wire Photographer of the Year. His powerful portfolio captures both the overwhelming scale of the crisis and that haunting intimacy of each personal struggle. More than 600,000 Rohingya Muslims have fled what the United Nations calls a textbook example of ethnic cleansing at the hands of Myanmar's military. Freya arrived in Bangladesh during the height of the mass exodus before aid agencies could distribute food. In an interview with Time, he says this scene led to the one moment that struck him the most, when an aid truck arrived in the city of Cox's Bazar. He watched a young boy fight through that massive crowd, claw his way onto the truck, and start begging for food. Freyer says it's hard to compare that magnitude of sadness to anything else I have ever seen. And that man's seen a lot.
We can sell our services to the world in a far easier fashion than we've ever been able to before.
Deborah Black has her own communications firm in Saskatoon. People anywhere in the world can find out about her products and services. Her firm has been on the internet since last fall. Because the technology is so new, it hasn't yet been a big moneymaker.
Well, so far the benefits are marginal at this stage, but it does place us in a very advantageous position in terms of the opportunity that presents for the future.
Every day, more private companies are getting their products on the internet.
There's a graphic here that will have our logo and the name of Kato Books at the top.
This Regina book publishing firm is getting on the internet this week. Reg Sylvester sees the internet as a combination of a mail-order catalog and the home shopping network.
We have a special grouping of books that we've done that were written by women. We call it the Women's Work Collection, so we can click on Women's Work and see the list of books.
Kato Books hopes being on the internet will mean new customers around the world, especially in the U.S.
If you'd really like to order it, then you can click on ordering information and you'll find our 1-800 number there. Or you can order by fax if you'd like, or by mail.
Sylvester has already discovered unexpected benefits of being on the internet.
I think that you'll find that the internet is a place where book publishers can sell international rights or American rights to other publishers in those countries. Places where publishers of multimedia projects will be able to find partners and that sort of thing. I think there's going to be a lot of business-to-business contacts as well that will be useful.
To set up an internet site, the firm spent about $3,000 for a new computer and $2,000 for a one-year hookup charge, for a total of $5,000.
I've been doing a bit of research. Some people are finding a lot of traffic on their internet site, and one publisher that I talked to said that they've sold somewhere between 0 and 1 books. So, you know, it's kind of risky. It's a little bit frightening.
Sylvester urges business people in Saskatchewan to become internet literate.
I think it's worth the effort to at least, for people in business, to at least know about the internet and to begin to understand the ways that they can use it. It's not just another advertising medium. It's a communication medium, and it helps you familiarize people with what your product is and how they can get it and how they can use it.
Matthew,
Hi.
meeting go with Innovation Place yesterday.
Good. There.
Deborah Black says knowing the internet will be essential for business.
It is going to be the source of everything that we do. It is going to be how we order our pizza. It will be how we make our telephone calls. It will be how we do business generally.
She says the internet could benefit Saskatchewan more than other places.
It really doesn't matter where in the world you exist. So previously, for Saskatchewan, there was a real disadvantage in our physical placement in the world. Now that is no longer an issue.
It's a Christmas every day in our lab, actually.
Okay, time for a forced detour. What if I were to tell you the government is pouring money into something called the Christmas Tree Research Center? Perhaps you're wondering why, but just reserve judgment for a moment. The Christmas Tree Research Center may be on the verge of transforming the holiday for millions. Kayla Hounsell explains.
Oh, Christmas tree, that leaves us so unchanging.
A lot of work, but it's fun.
Oh, Christmas tree, that leaves us so unchanging.
Despite all that work and all that mess, the de Warons get a real tree to celebrate Christmas every year. Yet as fast as they're decorating, the needles are falling.
They are a pain in the ass. They get in the furniture, they get on the floor, they get in the carpets.
But that may soon change.
It's a Christmas every day in our lab, actually.
Meet Dr. Raj Lada. He's the founding director of Dalhousie University's Christmas Tree Research Center. The $6 million project is funded in part by federal and provincial governments.
I'm fascinated by science transforming the society as my fundamental principle and belief.
But there are a lot of problems in the world. What made you decide, I'm going to fix the Christmas tree industry?
The Christmas tree industry is about close to $100 million industry, actually.
Now, after hundreds of experiments, Lada and his team believe they've figured out how to make trees last longer by reducing needle loss. They say these so-called smart trees will last at least 2 months after they're cut, maybe longer. How do they know it will work?
Is similar to what we can diagnose, actually, a baby before even born, actually, whether they'll have diabetes or whether they have high blood pressure or cholesterol.
So 6 years after the research began, the trees are ready to move from the lab to the land. And what better place to start than in the balsam fir Christmas tree capital of the world? Jim DeLong's father started growing Christmas trees here in 1954. His sons run the farm now. Jim is also the president of the Smart Christmas Tree Research Cooperative.
We'll just go between every tree and plant a new smart tree.
A group of growers who have paid $500 a share to aid the development of these trees, all because they believe it will improve their product and their business.
There are people in Nova Scotia here that send as far as the Philippines, Thailand, to South America countries. So yes, they'll be able to ship further and a better product.
Okay, so the thing everyone's going to want to know is when can they get their hands on one?
Well, we're going to start putting them in the ground in 2018. So probably 5 years from then, you'll be able to see them start to appear on the market. But once these get 8 feet tall, you'll just be amazed. They'll be the Cadillac of Christmas trees.
Oh, Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree.
For the de Warons, it's difficult to imagine a more perfect tree than this, but they say if it'll prevent the mess, buying a smart tree would be a smart decision. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
We're looking for, I don't know, your classic Christmas tree. Nice looking, like a nice pitch to it, and just, yeah, a tree out of the bush here.
All right.
Yeah.
Can we join you guys?
You sure can.
Wonderful.
So that is Olivia Stefanovic tagging along for a winter heist. They are in a national park, and that nice family trek for the ultimate Christmas decoration would usually be considered tree poaching, but this time the park is aiding and abetting, and Olivia tells us why.
No, yeah, exactly.
The Jansen family is trudging through Saskatchewan's Prince Albert National Park, searching for a tree to take home.
Do you see any trees that you like right now?
This one I like.
The big one?
That huge one?
I don't know if that's going to fit in your house.
We can just put it in the backyard.
In most national parks, cutting down evergreens is illegal.
How about this one here, bud?
But not here. Prince Albert is encouraging visitors to bring their axes.
Whoa! All the snow's falling down.
And take a swing at some of their Christmas trees. It may seem counterintuitive, but the Jansens are actually helping conservation efforts.
And I'll grab the base.
I want to grab the base.
You want to hold the base with me? Okay, you come over here.
Prince Albert is surrounded by boreal forest. Sections have to be thinned out every year to prevent the spread of wildfires.
If we can use them for Christmas, why not? Otherwise, they're just cut down and thrown out or burned.
So far, this is perfect how we're doing it. It's nice and spaced out.
Jim Durnan is leading the transformation.
So the whole area did look like this. So as we're working our way northward, it's cleaned up. So if we do get a human-caused fire, lightning-caused fire, a fire coming towards the town site, then we have a better chance of getting onto it and suppressing it.
His crews light hundreds of controlled fires each year to avoid bigger ones in the summer.
So this was full of bush and trees before?
Yep. It's slow, grueling work. But this year, maybe there won't have to be as many burns because of efforts like these.
There we go. You can take it home now, okay?
Yeah.
The start of what the park hopes will become a holiday tradition. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Prince Albert National Park, Saskatchewan.
Next on The National, it's Throwback Thursday, the Christmas edition. We reunite people with the letters they wrote to Santa decades ago.
I am in grade 1, and I will try to be a better girl. Well, I'm not sure how that worked out.
What about the do's and don'ts of tipping? Have you ever found yourself sheepishly putting pennies underneath the bill, half wondering if it's as tacky as it feels? Or what about the waitress who launches into a diatribe on the politics of veal? Now that you've lost your appetite, does she still deserve a tip? Well, Calgary restaurant critic John Gilchrist says no. He's got a few more tips on tipping to serve up as well.
When I look at tipping, I'm looking at the service right from the get-go. When I make a reservation over the phone, do they respond adequately?
Good morning, Teatro. Simone speaking.
You look for the service, how you're met at the door, where you're seated. How does the evening flow? Are you getting your water glass refilled? The bread in the basket, is it fresh? Is it warm?
Well, John, what about those pennies?
No, that is just gauche, I think.
Let's tackle something more general then. Are there any guidelines for tipping in the 90s?
If you're offered adequate service in a restaurant, people say somewhere 10, 15, 20% over and above the bill would be nice. What we're looking at there is the price before the tax is added. The people have a lot of confusion about that. Do I tip on the GST? Well, no, you don't.
And here's a trick. Double the GST on a restaurant bill and it's about 14%. Not bad as far as tipping goes, but even better, it's an easy way around the arithmetic. Okay, let's cut to the chase here. Who are the best tippers?
People on business trips, number 1. People who have worked in the industry, number 2. And generally younger people who are starting to make a few bucks.
And the worst?
People shall we say, over 50, and I hate to say it, a lot of women come in for a bad rap on this, don't tend to tip terribly well.
But others say tipping is more about psychology than gender.
I find, like, if you give them too much service, like if you start chatting them up and stuff like that, the tip is less. If you give them really cold service, if you just give them the facts, you know, about the food, you know, that kind of thing, the tip's much better.
And then there are those friends who don't tip, period.
My best advice on that is don't go out with them. Let them eat them by themselves, or else invite them over to your house. But yes, there are some people you just don't want to go out to restaurants with.
And how does it feel when a customer stiffs you?
Yeah, I had a huge wedding party one night. It was back when I was working in a bar, like a nightclub, but I had a wedding.
On the National tonight, some sad news to pass along from Toronto. Trailblazing community advocate and civic leader June Rowlands has died. She was the first woman elected mayor of the city, serving from 1991 to 94. She was also the first woman to head the Toronto Transit Commission and the Metropolitan Toronto Police Commission. Rowlands was 93 years old.
Not one more Indigenous child. Not one more Indigenous child.
Also in Toronto today, a march to mark the 5th anniversary of the Idle No More movement. Today's demonstration was meant to signal the movement is still active and to highlight the elevated suicide rates among Indigenous youth. And some dramatic video tonight of crews fighting a major fire in Nepean, south of Ottawa. That is a church engulfed in flames. The fire broke out late this afternoon, and at this point, officials say there are no reports of injuries and no word of the cause. And separatist leaders are celebrating tonight after their parties held on to a majority in elections in Spain's Catalonia region. The result's a big setback for the national government. It called the elections in the hopes of derailing Catalonia's push for independence. A record 80% of voters cast ballots.
So there are still a few days left to get your letters into Santa, but for a few folks in Ontario, there was an early gift because nearly 50 years ago, some kids in Canada sent letters to the North Pole through the Timothy Eaton Company. Those letters were archived, and this week, CBC got access to some of them. Lisa Shing then tracked down the people who wrote them long ago, and have a look at this.
Dear Santa, my name is Joanne Galka. I have been half good and half bad. That's so true.
Dear Santa, my name is Peter Sperling. I am a good boy. My big brother helped me write this letter.
I will leave you cookies and bread and milk and sugar for your reindeers. I am in grade 1. And I will try to be a better girl. Oh, I'm not sure how that worked out.
I want a train, and I asked for that every year till I got one.
I would like a baby precious doll. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. It's my mom's printing.
P.S. Don't come down our chimney or you'll land in the furnace.
I remember being worried because I really was half good and half bad. And Mom said, oh no, it's going to be good as long as you try hard from now until when Santa comes. I tell everybody the best gift you can get is time and memories. And no matter what happens, that's the one thing nobody can ever take away from you.
It's nice to remember stuff like this. Your friend, Peter.
Joanne Galka from Barry's Bay, Ontario. Oh my gosh.
I love the honesty of like half good and kind of half bad. And I have to say, I really hope that poor guy Peter got his train set pretty quickly and didn't have to write for some, 30 years before it arrived.
Hey, Adrian, was there a gift, a present from Santa that you always wanted as a kid and never got?
Yeah, a banana bike. I'm still waiting. You know, that with a great seat, never got it.
And for me, it was a little gas station that had the thing you could put the cars on and you would put the car up or down. I'm just thinking now maybe I'll go buy myself one.
I'm taking notes. I got it, Hanno. Don't worry. I got it. That is the National for December 21st. Good night.
Good night.